Welcome to the Tavern, World Builders! Today we are talking about the novella What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, pen name for Ursula Vernon. Beware, here there be spoilers. Grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hi.
And Christiana.
Hello.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
Cheers.
Cheers.
So just as I launch into the description of the book here, I will note up top, I'm sure we will talk about this more in our discussion, but Alex Easton, the protagonist of the story, is a sworn soldier and thus goes by the pronouns Ka/Khan. So I will refer to Ka as such during the description, and that way if you have not read the book, you know what those words mean. Alex Easton, retired sworn soldier of Galacia, rushes to Ruravia, say that 3 times fast, after receiving a letter that Khan old friend Madeline Usher is dying. After a chance encounter with a fungus enthusiast, Miss Potter, who is visiting the region to observe the plethora of fungi unique to the area, Easton arrives to find Madeline wasting away in her family's decaying manor, attended by her brother, Roderick, and their physician, Denton, neither of whom can figure out what is causing her ailments. Along with the mysterious illness, other unsettling things are afoot. The hares around the house walk with an unsettling, stilted gait and stare at passers-by in a way that regular hares do not. And when I say around the house, I mean around the house, outside the house, not around inside the house, just for clarity's sake. Easton also sees lights in the preternaturally still waters of the nearby tarn, even on starless nights, and the fish pulled from its waters are filled with a strange, felt-like substance. Ka cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong about the whole place. Madeline continues to deteriorate. She sleepwalks, talks nonsense, and all the hair on her body has turned stark white. A few days after Easton arrives, Madeline passes away. Easton has a realization while conversing with the visiting mycelium enthusiast. What Ka thought were white hairs on Madeline's body were actually fungal hyphae. Recalling the strange fibrous material inside the tarn's fish, Easton reveals Khan's suspicions to Denton, and the pair of them conduct an autopsy on one of the strange hairs, finding its insides also stuffed full of hyphae. After the dissected hair begins to crawl away, only ceasing its movements once its head has been fully hewn off, they rush to Madeline's body and find it has been removed from its crypt, and footprints lead inside and out the door. They find Madeline in her brother's bedroom, walking and talking in a way that the dead decidedly do not. She reveals that she actually died over a month ago and has been being puppeted by fungus from the tarn ever since. To kill the thing that killed his sister, Roderick burns down the house of Usher with himself inside. The rest of the group kills the tarn with sulfur and leave the villagers with instructions to shoot and burn any strange hares they encounter.
That was slightly confusing because first there was the hairs on Madeline's arm that we were talking about. Just wanted to clarify, the second hair was a rabbit. Rabbits were running around the house.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so this was my pick, jumping over into Happy Hour. This was my pick for the podcast, and I chose it because I love this book. I read it for the first time a few years ago. It was one of the first Kingfisher books that I read. We've actually talked about one of her other novels, Nettle and Bone, sorry.
My favorite.
Nettle and Bone.
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about that one on the podcast before, and that's another one of hers that I adore. I love a gothic horror. One of the things that first drew me to this book was the cover. If you haven't seen it before, it's this
gorgeous,
incredible, depiction of this rabbit, mushroom, creepy amalgamation. It's great. I also am a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe. So this is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, as you may have gathered from the names in the story. So all of these things are just perfect. I also really think it's almost like it's debated whether or not cozy horror is actually a genre. I think it is, and I think that this is sort of an example of a cozy horror.
This is a really good example.
Disagree.
Yeah, and I
thoroughly.
Oh, interesting.
I think cozy horror can be a thing.
Not that cozy horror can't be a thing, but that this was a cozy horror.
Oh,
I was.
Interesting.
I'll wait until you finish describing why you like it, Emma, and then go in. But
just My last reason that I specifically wanted to talk about on the podcast is because I think the world building, even though it's a very short book, I think the world building is phenomenal. So I thought it'd be really cool to talk about. And I especially love the way that Kingfisher works gender diversity into her fantasy, as we've already sort of alluded to up top with the various pronouns. So I thought that would be fun to talk about from a world building's perspective, as long with some of the other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my ramble. Allison and Christiana, what did you think of the book?
I'm absolutely obsessed with it. It's one of my new favorite books of all time. Adore it. Adore it.
I thought you'd like it. Yeah.
I also thought you would like
That being said, I have a very, very intense fear of fungus, and like being infected. It's a literal like OCD thing for me. So that I tried to play The Last of Us, for example, and it scared me so bad. I was like, could not function trying to play that game. And I like watching the show, I had to like look away anytime the zombies were on the scene. Like it freaks me out so bad. So I was kind of nervous reading this. I was like, I know it's going to scare me really good. So that's why I'm saying I did not find this a cozy read in any way, shape, or form.
That's
I was
fair.
thoroughly disgusted and horrified the entire time. But in a really good way. At one point I was like foolishly making dinner while I was listening, because I listened to the audiobook. I'm like foolishly making dinner. And my husband kept looking over at me because I would just kept going, no, while I was listening. It was visceral reaction.
There's definitely a few places where I was like grimacing viscerally, like as they were describing it. I'm just like, ugh.
For me, and also maybe it's like being such a fan of the horror genre. Like obviously, you know immediately that she's infected with some sort of fungus. I'm like, that's clearly what's going to happen. And when he grabs her arm and pulls away, and the hairs come with it, I was like, those are pieces of fungus, aren't they? Ugh. It was like, so I figured that one out right away and was deeply upset the whole time. Like, but it's in his hand. What if he's infected? Like, what if Ka's infected? What are we gonna do about that? Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah. Allison, what did you think? Had you read this one before, or was this a new Kingfisher book for you?
I read it before because I love T. Kingfisher, so I've read a lot of her stuff. This is not my favorite, you guys. I'm sorry. It's beautifully written. It's wonderful. It's just not for me. Historical is not my favorite in the first place, so I think that was working against it. And then, I don't know, mushrooms don't really do it for me. I'm not sure. I don't know. And also it was very, very slow. And as we know, slow books are not my thing. I like medium and I like fast, but slow, it's very hard for me to like a slow book. So I don't know. I do agree that this was cozy horror, but it felt that way to me because of the slowness, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. The first little bit, I could see why it's kind of cozy-ish, you know?
Yeah.
Then
very much fits within
fungus
the gothic
nightmares happen, and
subgenre.
Yeah.
And there's some beautiful line level things happening, which I will talk about in Last Call. T. Kingfisher has just a lovely writing style. So I did enjoy that. But it was just one of those books that, you know, not every book is for everyone. So that's fine.
Yep. That is fair.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to talk about the world building, so let's head right on over to Tavern Talk. For such a short book, I feel like there's a lot of world building stuff that's going on that I'm very excited to talk about. So one thing that we've kind of talked about already is sort of the subgenre. So this is a fantasy. It's definitely a horror. I'd say it's for sure a gothic horror. Would you?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Consensus.
Definitely gothic.
Excellent.
It definitely harkens back to the short story it's based on, which I've never read, but I read about in preparation.
Excellent. I also have not read it. I realized I should have, and I was like, I hope somebody has read it. But...
I've read it, but it was so long ago that I can't remember.
I actually
think
think it might be better if you hadn't to enjoy this book, because it sounded, from what I read, that it was pretty faithful to the story. So you would have maybe something spoiled for you. Of course, it expands, and in the original story, the narrator isn't named. It seems like they're kind of like you're supposed to put yourself in their shoes. And in this one, Alex definitely has a whole personality and background and everything, which I appreciate.
Yes. Much more of a character. Yeah. One thing about the world building that I thought was fun is, so as Alice had mentioned, this is like a historical book, as was, set in the time of the fall of the House of Usher, which is like the 1800s. It's a blend of our world and like a fictional world. So it's a fictionalized version of our world, but they like mix real countries with fake countries. So like there's a lot of references to Britain and France and America. A lot of disparaging remarks about Americans, which I thought was very funny. Which was, and I mean, kind of equally scathing remarks about the British. So there's some balance in the national stereotyping that happens. Yeah. But alongside these real countries, there's fake countries. So Galicia and the name that I cannot say, Ruravia, which I thought was very fun. It's almost a completely different genre, but like Princess Diaries does something similar where Europe is real, but then they make up a fake country that her dad is the king of.
Yeah. I thought it was neat. I liked that. And I liked how real it felt because they keep just... It's not even that they're info dumping. It's just things that Alex thinks about in the moment. Like, oh, there are 7 sets of pronouns of this country and this is mine kind of thing.
That was one of the things that when I first read this book, that really stuck out to me was the really creative, and I may have actually mentioned it on the podcast before, I'm not sure, because I do love to rave about this, but I really like how Kingfisher incorporates gender diversity into this fantasy, because I feel like it can often feel harder to do that in fantasy, especially in like historical fantasy, than it does in something like sci-fi. Because of course, when you're writing sort of historical, you tend to get very tied to what actually exists in our world. I'm so sorry if you can hear my cat. He's like going crazy. He's had dinner, but he wants second dinner.
Or is it Arthur?
That is Arthur. He demands to be heard. Arthur, you made me lose my train of thought, silly boy. Right, yes, it can be harder to break from reality when you're writing sort of a historical fantasy. And, in English, traditionally, historically, for a long time, there has been, male pronouns and female pronouns, and in other languages it works differently. But, in English, that's how it works. And so you have a hard time sometimes separating yourself from that. But I thought that this was a really interesting way of doing it, which was to kind of incorporate another language, like Easton thinking about how in Ka's language, there's 7 sets of pronouns for various people, including 1 set of pronouns that's only used for God and 1 that's used for inanimate objects, and then 1 for sworn soldier. So when you become a sworn soldier, you sort of set aside whatever your previous gender was, and you are then known as Ka/Khan. And I just thought that was really interesting. Did you guys have the same sort of experience with that bit of the world building as I did?
I really liked it. I mean, being non-binary, I'm always going to love any sort of inclusion of things like that. That being said, I was thinking about it after the fact, where I'm really glad that it was all included, but I was thinking to myself, like, did they have to make up any of that? Like, did that actually serve a purpose in the story? It's like, not really. I mean, it served as character motivation. It explained the character of Alex quite interestingly, but I just thought that was interesting. I'm still glad it was in the book. It didn't take away from it in any way, shape, or form for me. But like, this could have just been set in France.
There are 2 sequels to this book, so I'm curious.
Oh, maybe if it ties in more there.
Setting up something to tie more into the next one.
I've read the second one. I haven't read the third one because it just came out, but they're sort of like a series of sort of standalone adventures with Easton, so sort of Ka's travels and then various sort of supernatural things that they experience. Actually, I think that it really helped the story that there's this sort of fictionalized country, because I think that it helps set the tone for the fact that this is a fantasy and not just like a straight up historical novel.
I mean, the mushrooms also contribute to
mushroom.
That.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Like, I feel like just the mushrooms could have done that. I'm not saying that I'm like upset that it was included or anything like that, because I really enjoyed it. I thought that was really interesting. It was just like a little thought experiment for me where I was like, was that necessary? Would I have bought into this story if it was just set in, England or something? I'm like, I probably would have. I think I still would have been on board. But I liked what it did for the character of Alex. I think it was very important for Alex's character.
Yeah, which I think makes it kind of crucial to, like, I think it's a less interesting because it's a less nuanced and less layered story if you just take that
Yes,
out
that's
and they're
true.
just
Yeah.
from, England or whatnot.
I liked it, but I love fantasy more than I like historical fantasy, so it was a little bit more of a link to that genre for me. And
Yeah.
I think it did still feel like 1800s because there was still obvious oppression. When you meet Miss Potter, the
Yes.
mushroom expert, she makes a few comments that make it obvious that sexism is alive and well in this world. And Alex also makes some comments that sound like people are not accepting of trans folk either at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
there was one passage that I was like, man, I deeply relate to that, where it was just a discussion of like the conversation of like death by 1,000 paper cuts, where it's like, I'm never actually that offended when someone gets it wrong. It's just like after so long of people getting it wrong, like that's when it gets frustrating kind of thing,
Yeah.
where Ka was like debating whether or not like Khan wants to correct Denton on how they refer to Ka or whatever. Like it was a little thing like that. And I was like, damn, if I haven't felt that before, it kind of made me laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that can be helpful for breaking out of those things that we see as being historically accurate is to, because we all know that things are done differently in different places, right?
Yeah.
So making up this fictional country where this is the reality of gender and it's different from sort of our historical understanding of Western gender kind of gives you a little bit more freedom to play with that while keeping it closer to our reality in other ways, which I think also is interesting. Like an interesting sort of tack to take.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the topic of Miss Potter, there's a throwaway line that reveals that Miss Potter, the mushroom expert, is the aunt of Beatrix Potter,
Wait, what?
the
I missed
children's
that.
story. It's a throwaway line where Easton says to Miss Potter, like, you're really good at drawing these mushrooms, and Miss Potter says, you should see my niece Beatrix. She's way better than I.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Which is
That's
hilarious.
hilarious.
Yeah, and then in the author's note afterwards, Kingfisher confirms that like that's what she was doing. And
love
when I read it,
that.
I was like, that's insane. That's so funny.
Amazing.
Just like writing her aunt into this story. Speaking of characters, we have talked about Easton's character a little bit. I would say that this is not a particularly character-focused story.
No.
I don't think really that Easton has, I don't want to say, I don't think they have character development. Like, they're pretty much the same. Sorry, Ka is pretty much the same at the beginning as at the end.
I'm gonna say
that
it's okay to
something you
say
agree with?
they, them, because I noticed they used that in the book description text. Because I checked. I'm like, is it okay if I
Yeah.
use they, them?
I'm trying to use Ka just because I think
It's
'cause
a
I think
fun
the reason that it says
experiment.
they.
It's good practice.
Yeah, and I think the reason it probably says they on the copy is because going into the details of what Ka means.
Oh,
as a fictional
yeah,
word
that's
outside
true.
of a dust jacket would be
That's
tricky.
That'd be a lot. Yeah.
We're all doing our best. We may mess it up with these fictional pronouns, but yes, we will attempt. But we were talking about Easton's character arc and the fact that I would say that Ka does not have one. I don't think that that's
I
bad, but I
agree.
don't think they have one.
That's probably also why this isn't the book for me, because I love character arcs.
Mm.
Ka doesn't really have any growth or fall. You could have either.
I do think it's kind of character driven just in the sense of all the characters, like Alex and Roderick and Angus and Denton, feel very distinct and like they have a history. Like they didn't just like pop into existence as soon as this story started, right?
Certainly.
And like
yes.
as a
Mhm.
group, they're all kind of dealing with the same trauma, but in different ways. I thought that was kind of interesting, like an interesting little character study of what war and what the trauma of war does to people and how people choose to, react to it or choose not to react to it. And so I thought that was interesting because
Roderick.
yeah.
Yeah, just to give some background to the listeners. So Roderick and Easton had served in war together. Denton had also been in war, not with them, but was like a combat medic. And then I believe Angus just also had a background as a soldier. So they were all kind of, traumatized by violence.
Yeah. And they
which
share
is some
and
great
talk about
character
that
work.
like with each other a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They definitely felt like real characters, but there was no growth or change.
Yeah.
you know, Alex doesn't go through anything particular in Ka's inner thoughts, you know, like Ka's not struggling with anything particular. Ka doesn't really grow.
Yeah.
So I agree that it's not a character-driven story.
Yeah. Because the characters are not what is propelling what's happening. The plot propels what's happening, but because the characters are so rich, they feel real and they feel like their motivations line up with what is going on. And that's an interesting advice, because I think a lot of the times we're so focused on character because characters arcs is very important, but we often get so hung up on that, what is the character arc? And sometimes there is no character arc. Sometimes the plot is the focus. And that can be hard to pull off, but it's also a very valid method of doing
that kind of story is also more popular in a few different genres. It's really popular in mystery, so you have your Sherlock Holmes, who doesn't really ever change much. So that's a common thing. You have these really long detective series where the characters don't necessarily go through arcs.
I think it's also pretty common in horror. It's changing now, I think. Actually, horror is becoming a genre that is a lot more about exploring characters and their motivations. But I still think a lot of horror is basically put character in situation, watch them react kind of thing.
That checks out, because the other genre I was going to say is thriller, which is very much related to horror. Something like Indiana Jones, just a very adventure thriller type story where he doesn't really do any changing or growing, but it's exciting to watch.
I think in standalone sort of or interconnected standalone series, I think that is also sort of a feature because in things and that's a lot of the examples, like Sherlock Holmes or this, where it's character goes from strange situation to strange situation, kind of figuring out what's happening. You kind of want that character is the consistent thing, right? Easton is our consistent thread throughout these various novels of Ka going and being what supernatural thing is happening here? What supernatural thing is happening there? So it's not about, maybe Ka has more growth over, maybe it's a longer sort of arc over this series as a whole. But Ka definitely plays that, everyman or straight man who's thrown into the supernatural doings and is the one kind of looking to camera being what? Here? Picture Jim Halpert.
That's exactly what I thought of when you said that. I was Jim from The Office. Yeah.
But it's that scene when Ka shoots the hair in the head, and then the hair gets back up and just stands up and watches Ka.
Yeah.
Just straight deadpan to the camera. Yeah.
To the camera. Yes, I can totally picture that. Since this is a more plot-focused book, we can chat about the plot. So one thing that Christiana, you already talked about, was how you immediately know that mushrooms are going to be the culprit, and that's absolutely we are talking about mushrooms immediately. The first sentence is mushrooms. The first conversation in the novel is between Alex and Miss Potter about mushrooms. Yes. So do you guys think that is too heavy-handed? Would you have preferred the reveal to, for it to be a little bit less obvious? Or do you think that was done well and sort of, upped the tension, kind of having this suspicion in the back of your head?
I don't think it was a suspicion. I thought it was kind of fun for us to know exactly what's going on and try and watch the characters figure it out. So sometimes that's fun too. Again, that's, I think, a thing you see in horror a lot. Is unless it's, a movie like Scream or something where the whole point of it is who's the killer? A lot of the time, it's that, the cabin is surrounded by werewolves before the characters know that the cabin is surrounded by werewolves kind of thing. I feel like you see that in horror fairly often. It's just kind of how watching it unfold and how people will respond to it or try and defeat it, and whether or not they're successful in doing so, I think, is the mystery in these things. Is it's okay to, I think, at least in this genre, it's okay to show the problem up front before the character even knows, because the question isn't, what's happening. Sometimes it is, and sometimes that's great. But sometimes the equally valid question is, how the heck are you going to deal with that kind of thing?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good distinction of like the different type of mystery, and the mystery is not always what's going on. Yeah, that's great.
I liked mushrooms right off the bat because horror is all about dread. And
Yes.
so from the very first sentence, you're like, this description is really gross. Obviously, this is going to be a theme. And with the cover, you get that too.
Yeah.
And immediate dread. How is it going to come up later? What's going to happen? Yeah. Who's going to be infected? Yeah, I liked it.
I think especially because it's a novella, like it is such a short book that if you had waited, there just wasn't enough space. Like you had to have the mushrooms come in immediately, because if you had waited till halfway through the book, like then it's coming out of left field, and then you're like, why are there suddenly mushrooms? It doesn't make any sense. There's no time to build that dread anymore. So yeah, the length of your work, I think, also really affects sort of when you should introduce things, or because if this was a 1,000-page book, we'd probably be so bored of mushrooms by like the 4th chapter because we're getting so much mushroom content. But because it's so short, you need the mushroom content right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think the world building lends itself to the length here, because you could have realistically, I mean, in that world, Kingfisher has built out this really kind of interesting rebuild of history. She very well instead could have done it about Alex's experience becoming a sworn warrior and what Ka was experiencing in battle and what that looked like. You know what I mean? You could have a whole novel series, long novel series about that instead. But instead kind of choosing to make it in this little small thing, I think the world building made it feel really rich. The mushroom problem couldn't carry you for multiple books in a big story like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that specific set piece of the world building, I think, kind of has to be an in and out sort of story. Mm-hmm. Unless it's something like, The Last of Us, where it's everyone is having mushroom problems.
This may be an Allison question, as it's sort of a active publishing industry question. But would we say, so this is a novel, obviously, that takes a known story in the public domain and reinterprets it and rewrites it, kind of like, a Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, although that one's even more kind of directly rewriting an existing work. Is that a genre or is that a format, would we say?
Oh, interesting. I mean, one of the more popular types of this story is the fairy tale retelling. Would I call that a genre? I don't know if I would call it a genre. So generally when I'm thinking of genres, I'm thinking what section of the bookstore is it going into? And there isn't a section for retellings.
Yeah.
So maybe a subgenre or just I don't know if I would call it a format either. I think genre is
like
closer.
A style almost or something.
Yeah, and I would not compare this to Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, because Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is actually quite unique in that it takes the original text of the book and just changes some things about it and adds zombies. And I actually haven't seen a book like that since. Which is curious, because it did really well.
The same person did Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters.
I guess I haven't seen another author or another series like that. They did the same thing with Sense and Sensibility, yeah.
There's a series of someone rewrote all of the Star Wars movies into like a Shakespearean play, like with Shakespearean language and everything.
Oh, that's very fun.
Yeah. I think they might have only just done the first movie. I remember someone got it for me one time as a cutesy little gift. Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat.
This is a little bit of an aside, but I think it still is germane to our current conversation, which is I think maybe the reason why we don't see more of that genre is that it's more of the novelty of it, because you're not really getting a new story.
Yeah.
Like the story is still Pride and Prejudice, and like you can just read the original. So it's more just the like, oh, this is a cool thing that they did, which kind of wears thin after a little bit. It's like being to do that is like, oh, that's not really new and fun anymore. That's just
Actually, interesting aside, I did this with a different novel. I took Jane Eyre and I made it into a fantasy story. It was just kind of a fun exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about querying it and chatted with a few other editors about it, and they're like, there's just not really a market for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. So I have this thing on my computer
fun.
that's very fun, but I don't know what to do with it. But it was a fun exercise, especially as an editor. It was kind of like just editing plus a thing that already existed, so I enjoyed it. But yeah, I don't know who.
Yeah, I think you need to do a more sort of substantial retelling, because there's obviously a market for that. Like, there's countless, Greek myths retold, fairy tales retold, Edgar Allan Poe retellings. Actually, I think there's quite a few. That are,
I was gonna say,
that.
Even The Fall of the House of Usher was just a big Netflix series directed by Mike Flanagan.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
It's very gory. It's so good. But yeah, fair warning. It's quite gory. But I will rapidly consume anything Flanagan puts out, so of course I enjoyed it. But yeah, you see a lot of Poe for sure.
Mm-hmm. Which means I think if you are going to attempt to do sort of a retelling, it does have to be unique enough that it is somehow a new story, like you're getting something new out of it, which I think both the sort of overtly fantastical elements, because The Fall of the House of Usher and like all of Poe's work are like kind of fantastical, but more in like a
I mean, it's
not
definitely
quite magical
gothic.
realism. They're like but like this is more overtly fantastical. And then also I think also Easton's character does a lot of heavy lifting in that, because Ka's character is very unique and definitely automatically makes this a very different story from the original.
You know what? I think maybe I have concluded my thought exercise on whether the kind of made-up country was necessary or not for this specific story. Maybe it was, just to change it enough that it felt like a new reading,
Yeah.
There's something different.
That makes sense. Yeah. Interesting. I love it when we do a whole thought experiment on the podcast.
There we go.
That's great.
Concluded. Opinion formed.
And now you can never change it, because as we know, once you have an opinion, it has to stay the same.
Forever and ever.
One of the last things that I'd like to talk about, which we have talked about a little bit already, but is definitely these sort of mood and tone and vibes of the story. So we've already talked about the sort of gothic vibes. It's very gothic. It's very eerie and gloomy. You get the sense right from the beginning of the story that like something is off. Like and we can talk about some of the line level writing that we all really loved, but like Kingfisher does a great job of, even at the line level, just describing things in a way that makes them feel slightly off, like the opening sentence comparing the mushroom looking like flesh. And it's like, technically, that's accurate, but also there's ways that you can write that description that don't feel creepy and, off. And so I thought that was really brilliantly done, of just like the same way that Easton kind of enters this story and feels the wrongness, we as the readers enter this story and are like, oh, everything's kind of just a little bit wrong. Were there other things that made you guys pick up on like the gothicness or like the mood or the vibes? Or were there other vibes other than the gothic weirdness that stood out to you?
I really loved the humor. So T. Kingfisher at least all the books I've read of hers always inserts some sort of humor into her writing. And in this one, there was definitely some satire, some social commentary. I wrote down a line because I really loved it. So we've already established that there is sexism in this world. And when Easton first comes to the mansion and is talking with the others, the Dr. Denton mentions that Madeline would just be diagnosed with hysteria if she went to a different doctor. And later on, they're diagnosing the hare, the rabbit, they're autopsying it. And Denton says that it's female, just as an aside comment. And Easton thinks, and if it were human, would it be diagnosed with hysterical catalepsy? Which I just thought was a hilarious line, just pointing to the sexism in the world, and very, very funny. So there's lines like that in the book that I enjoyed.
I think also, again, the line level, some of it being the world building, certainly a ton of it being the world building too. But there was something about like the voice of Alex that really fit the time period. I know it sounds silly, but it's like, you know, when it's like you're watching a movie and it's supposed to be set old-timey and they're like, yes, chip, chip, cheerio, old boy, kind of thing. Like, they have that, like, every character kind of has that interesting kind of little affectation to their talk that I very much enjoyed. I felt like in it immediately, just even how Ka was describing things, like, from the get-go. I was like, yes, okay, I know the time period.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Alex Easton's style of humor is wry and, like, sort of this, like, dry sarcasm, which was great. And I think, like, I love a book, even though they feel like opposites, that includes humor and horror, because I think it kind of heightens both. Mm-hmm. The humor sort of can cut through the tension, but then the tension is that much more heightened because you have the contrast to the sort of, like, humor and lightheartedness, which I think works really well together.
You're seeing it more and more, too. It's like a big, at least in movies, horror comedies are becoming, like, significantly more common, I feel, at least in my decades of watching horror movies. Because it used to be rare to find one, or it had to be, like, a parody of a horror movie, not quite a horror movie. But even just when you think of, like, Weapons, when that came out, there was a few scenes in that, despite there's, like, tons of really scary, creepy scenes, but there's also quite a few scenes that, like, the whole theater just, like, burst out laughing kind of thing. You're seeing it more.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, mashing up horror with something else seems to be rising in popularity, because horror romance, or horror-mance, is
that's a mouthful.
Growing in publishing. I know. Like, we discussed John Wiswell's Horror-mance.
Oh, someone to build a nest in?
Yeah.
That, someone you can build a nest in, sorry.
It was kind of, I don't know if it was that book particularly, but that was kind of the start of this trend that is still happening.
Yeah. I thought that the building of dread worked really well in this novel as well. Allison, you had talked about that earlier. Because you start off with this sort of general feeling of wrongness, and then it just keeps escalating. So, like, at first it's like this mushroom that kind of looks like flesh, and then the house is really creepy, and then the lake is too still, and then the hairs are moving weirdly, and then Madeline is sleepwalking, and it's like just like thing after thing, just like ratcheting up how unsettling everything is. Which is
there was one line where Easton is with Madeline. I think Ka was helping her to bed after she was sleepwalking. Mm-hmm. Ka thinks something like, if I didn't know she was alive, I would think she was a corpse, because she was so pale and cold. And it was like, it was right there. Yeah. And it was right out in the open. I thought that was very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I thought really helped at one of these points of ratcheting up the dread even higher was Easton repeating to Ka's self over and over again, the dead don't walk, the dead don't walk, as Ka is going down to the crypt to check on Madeline's body. And it's like, there's nothing more unsettling than having to repeat something reassuring that, like, it has to be true. Like, it would be impossible for it not to be true, but you having to reassure yourself that an impossibility can't be happening is so creepy, because it's like, of course the dead can't walk, but if you have to convince yourself the dead can't walk, something is very wrong. Something has gone very badly.
Yeah.
With that, let's head on over to Last Call. So here are some concluding thoughts and questions from us truly, your lovely podcast hosts, and things that we think that you can take away from What Moves the Dead to apply to your own world building. And I almost forgot the title of the novel. You can hear my brain stuttering.
You got it, though.
I got there. One thing that I am just really think is really interesting is kind of, and Allison, you sort of hit on it earlier, is this idea of using a retelling or sort of even the more close, like the more one-to-one example of something like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, of like an editing or a reworking of an existing story as a writing exercise, I think is really interesting. I think that it, even if you never intend to publish it or do anything with it, just as like a fun way to get yourself out of a writer's block or exercise some of those writing muscles. I think taking an existing story, especially if it's one in the public domain, because then if you end up really liking it, you could pursue publishing, but rewriting an existing story is a really interesting way of practicing those talents. You can also do it. I mean, fan fiction writers have been doing that
I was
for
just gonna
decades.
say, this is our plug for AO3. Get on there. I need new things to read.
Fan fiction is incredible. I think that that's such a great gift to the world.
It was really interesting doing Jane Eyre because I was adapting it, I was adding new things, but I had to try and keep to Charlotte Bronte's voice. So it was a very fun exercise of trying to use the words and phrases that she would use when I'm adding a line and that kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely think it was worth doing.
I think it also makes you really analyze character and plot because you have to understand the characters that exist really well, or you have to understand the plot
would they do
as
this
it
new
exists.
thing that I want them to do? Yeah.
So if you're looking for writing exercises, or if you don't feel like you have any ideas and you're kind of in a writer's block, take a story, find something. I'll challenge you to find something in the public domain. Take a story, take a poem even. Like, you can take a poem and expand the world and rewrite it, make it your own, and see what comes of it. I think that's really cool.
Another fun exercise I did was I took a couple of public domain books and swapped the genders of the characters.
Oh yeah,
I did it with
when you were doing
Frankenstein. And I did it with Dracula. And it was very fun just to analyze what sexism was there that I didn't even notice when I first read it.
Yeah.
That was really interesting. I really enjoyed doing that too. Yeah, those are just projects sitting on my computer that I'm like, I don't know what to do with this now. But it was, I think it was worth it. I think it was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool.
Yeah.
What else would you take from the novel, Allison, to apply to your own world building?
So I really loved the line level techniques that Kingfisher used. So I just recommend reading this book and putting your writing glasses on while you're reading it and analyzing what she's accomplishing at a line level. So I wrote down a couple of lines as an example. So she often uses sensory language that foreshadows. So here's the first line that we've kept referencing over and over again throughout this episode. Here it is. The mushroom's gills were the deep red color of severed muscle, the almost violet shade that contrasts so dreadfully with the pale pink of viscera. So it immediately sets the tone. We know this is a gothic. We know this is going to be kind of gross and feature mushrooms. And like Emma said earlier, Kingfisher could have described that mushroom in pleasant ways. You know, it was the red of a strawberry or something. And she did not. She went with raw meat and human viscera. I mean, I'm imagining viscera. I guess it could be anything. But anyway, so that's an example. She does that a lot, this sort of sensory details, comparing things to gross things, that kind of thing. So really look at that. And then she also gets across a lot of information just through dialogue. So this is really helpful. The sci-fi and fantasy writer's curse is like, when do I give world building information? Like, what's too much?
Yeah.
How do I get it across? And so she does it a lot through dialogue. So for example, Easton's first conversation with Miss Potter, during this she says, "She's an amateur only, I fear, as supposedly befits my sex." She's saying it with sarcasm, so we immediately know that sexism is alive and well in this world. And for me, this line also made me suspect that Miss Potter is actually good at what she does and is knowledgeable and knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, it immediately set that thought in my mind, like, oh, this world is sexist. They're underestimating her. She's going to be an expert and probably come back and be important in this story. And she was, and she did. And Kingfisher got that across in, like, a single line, which is really impressive. So yeah, read through this book, comb through the lines, read it slowly, and just look at what she's accomplishing.
I'm gonna add just what, because we didn't talk that much about line level, and I do just love the line level in this book. I have so many like phrases highlighted that I just loved. I also think that something that Kingfisher did really, really well, that to keep an eye out for if you do, I'm gonna say when, because you absolutely should read this book. When you read this book and you're paying attention to the writing things that she does, she's also really good at revealing things and stopping at exactly the right moment. So there's a moment when Easton is talking again to Miss Potter, And it's when Ka has sort of started putting together that maybe this is something to do with the mushrooms, maybe something weird is going on. Ka's asking Miss Potter questions about, what could mushrooms do? What do their hyphae look like? And they have this conversation about the hyphae and how it could look like that felt-like substance in the fish. And then Miss Potter says, but in small amounts, it would look like fine white hairs. And, like, that's where the paragraph break is, and then we, like, switch to the next scene. And you could go farther, right? You could have, in that moment, you could have Easton think to Ka's self, just like on Madeline's arm, right? Like, you could have the thought be fully put together, but Kingfisher stops us right at the moment so that we, the reader, are putting that together instead of the character straight up telling us.
Because she trusts the reader. Yeah.
And Kingfisher does that a few times in the novel. So just keep an eye out for that, because I think that's also a great example of how to, trust your reader and how to get those things across without, like, spoon feeding it to them all the way. Like, just leave off that very last revelation. Which is a lot. We're babbling a lot about this book because I just love it so much. But last but certainly not least, Christiana, what do you take away from this book that we can apply to our own world building?
I think you guys were both so fantastic with your advice that I'm going to keep mine very short and sweet. I always say on the podcast, get weird with it. Like, don't be afraid to get weird. So this is going to seem so out of left field. Know the level of weird with it. Like, do get weird. But if you had, if the mushrooms were, like, growing off the house and, like, shooting out of people's eyeballs and everything, that would be a very, very different story that I don't think would fit in a Gothic retelling, right? So it was the right level of weird to be weird and therefore thoroughly enjoyable for me. But it was also, the reins were pulled just enough that it didn't feel like completely out of place or completely fundamentally changed the story, right? So do absolutely get weird with it. But think about what weird looks like in your setting and in your world, right? Weird
know
in
your subgenre too.
Yeah, because weird in a pseudo-Gothic Europe is going to look a lot different than weird in, outer space, right? You could, like, there was two very different levels of possible weirdness if you want to still kind of fit in that vibe and that subgenre.
Yeah.
So.
And if you're thinking to yourself, like, how on earth will I know if I'm doing it correctly, that is where things like beta readers come in really helpful. So once you've finished your story, having people who know what they're talking about read and critique your work, and being open to that feedback and being open to pulling back or increasing the weirdness depending on what your beta readers say, that's when that comes in for sure. Like if you're not sure exactly one way or the other.
And also always the question of, would this fit in any other story? I think is something I ask myself a lot, right? Where it's like, would these mushrooms fit in any other story? It's like, yeah, they would, but it wouldn't fit as perfectly as it does in this kind of Gothic setting, in this retelling with this dread and stuff like that. Whereas if you, like I said, decided to make the mushrooms 20 feet tall, it's like, well, could I put 20 feet tall mushrooms in New York and have that be scary? Yes. Okay, well, then maybe this isn't a Gothic story, right? So looking at that kind of, that weird, and does it fit in the space that you've built?
Love it. Great advice. Great advice once again, gang. We've done it again. We're so
amazing. You should just listen to us all the time and subscribe and join our Patreon.
And with those self-appointed laurels, let's head on over to Proprietor's Peak. So, next episode, of course, is a world-building workshop. I am going to be guiding us through building a zombie inspired by our discussion today. Super excited.
I'm so excited.
We love to do sort of grim, dark, horrible world building, so this is perfect. Next Tavern episode will be coming out in May 2026. If you are listening to this in the same timeline that we are recording it in, if you are listening to this in the future, then it's already out. Go listen to it right now. And I am going to let Christiana describe the book because it is their pick. Christiana, what are we going to be reading?
Yes, so we will be discussing Binti by the author Nnedi Okorafor. This actually isn't something that I've read before, but it was suggested to me by someone. So I took this as an opportunity to force it upon you fine folks. Okay, I was like, I know it was a suggestion. I can't remember who. So thank you.
I've read it, and it's great.
Okay. So it's roughly quickest plot summary ever. A young woman, titularly named Binti, is the first member of the Himba people from Earth to be accepted into a prestigious intergalactic university. Upon being notified of her acceptance, she runs away from home, boards a transport ship, and while in transit, the ship is hijacked. And then, of course, many, many hijinks ensue.
Yay! It's been a long time since I read it, so I'm actually really excited to read it again because I've forgotten.
Perfect.
Forgotten what happens. Yeah.
Listeners, if you would like to read this book before you listen to us talk about it, you can absolutely pick it up from our bookshop.org page. The links are in the show notes of this episode. Buying from this link supports both us and an indie bookstore, so if you're going to buy it anyway, why not buy it from there? And now we are at closing time. Unfortunately, we do have to end here. We would love to stay longer, but this decrepit manse simply is not going to set itself ablaze. Support the podcast by joining our Patreon, where you can access bonus world-building workshop episodes from seasons past. A free way to show us love is by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Find us online on our Discord, where we chat about books, writing, and world-building, on TikTok, and at our website, www.worldbuilderstavern.com. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye.
Get out of here.